Shooting it raw?
Yes. Shooting it raw. So this photograph is called Crater.
Yeah.
And so it's a very different feel from the other one, which was more sort of chaotic. This is a... Is it a photo of a circular painting, or is it a circular...
It's a circular canvas.
It's a circular canvas. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's a circular canvas. It's the color palette is violet, blues, purples, black, yellow, gray. The way it's photographed now, it looks almost like you have this black with yellow X with a sort of target in the middle, and it's very geometric. It almost looks like one of those kaleidoscopes where you look through a tube and you see these like kaleidoscopic shapes. And
it'll be easy for you to tie this back, I think, domino-wise. And I didn't intentionally. I didn't know the conversation.
C'est la vie, you know? We'll find
again, something that I've made during COVID, and a friend of mine from Beijing who lives in the States now, who's a curator, set up a group of artists all over the world. There were 15 of us, and created what she called the Crater Project. And it was an attempt to have, and these are artists that are working in print or textiles. There's one Japanese woman who makes her own dyes and kind of puts them onto different materials. But it was all of our attempts to make works that addressed depression and what people were feeling during COVID, and what artists were feeling in particular during that time. Because I think COVID had this really interesting effect on people that make art or do things creatively, in that you either were completely paralyzed by what was happening in the world and you couldn't produce a thing, or you were, all you could do was work because you had to get it out of you.
Right.
And I would say there were kind of artists coming from both places that came together on this project. But so Crater was kind of the prompt, this idea of a crater, and metaphorically, but that's this kind of black space that you would fall into in the midst of depression.
Okay.
And so we were trying to create pieces that would help each other not feel so lonely in the world, or try to help other people when they would look at the collective body of work, realize they're not alone in a way.
Yeah.
There's some Nepali text that's been written on in the black sections there.
Oh, okay.
And the reason for that is before COVID, I spent a lot of time in Nepal. And there's an artist there who was part of this group. And the piece she made was circular. And she made her piece before I made this.
Okay.
And the interior, it looks like a labyrinth of sorts. And the interior of her piece are all these English words that it's almost like a thesaurus of words that also relate to depression.
Oh, okay.
And so it's this list of words that she wrote. So I asked her why she wrote those in English, and she said because she wanted the greater group to be able to read it.
Oh,
and I don't read Nepali, but I wanted to, I guess, honor what she'd done. And she'd lost her father during COVID in Nepal, and had a really hard time with that.
Sure.
So I made this piece to connect to her in a way. There's also another woman who was part of this group who's Native American. And also lost her mother during COVID. Okay. And this all happened while we'd gotten together as a group. This hadn't preceded us getting together. So we kind of went through these experiences with each other. And so this piece also, you're describing it, but it looks, it could be a Native American war shield.
It really could.
And the color scheme, the purples, and what looks like black is actually a really deep blue, and blue is a color that's, you're feeling blue when you're depressed. It's symbolically the color of depression in many ways. And so I wanted to have the purple in there because that to me is a color that is moving you away from that. It's a transitional color in a way.
Right.
There's some blue in it, but
yeah.
And then there's this kind of brightening in the purple sections toward light.
So as a visual cue for somebody listening, like imagine you're looking, it's a circle, and the eye is drawn from the outward in because, like, imagine with a pizza pie, it's like there are these triangular slices, and those are kind of purple. And as they go into the slice, it kind of becomes brighter, not fully white, but almost like this white violet. So when you say crater, and when I hear you describe it, and when I look at this, the eye is drawn to the center of the image. Therefore, the center, the bullseye, so to speak, of the painting is this not very geometric, it's slightly messy. It's the only sort of part of the painting that has some red to it. And imagine a sort of ashy, bloody moon almost in there. Now, so when I say this, what connections are coming up in you? Like, what is my reading?
Yeah. So that the center part of it is meant to kind of give you this sense of falling into the crater. Yeah, to draw you in and provide that sensation in a way, whether you know it or not.
Right,
but you're looking at this very dark area, and there is the kind of lighter section, reddish section in the middle. But yeah, it's related to again this concept of a crater, and that was what the woman who convened the group, that was the word she gave to us. But
it's a funny word to choose to pick. I mean, crater as a term, as a word, has such just the sound itself.
Yeah,
is very interesting in the sense that, and what it evokes, it's this idea of it's post-explosion.
Yeah,
it's kind of like it's what's left after this massive like shock or trauma.
Yeah.
And so when you're describing it, we're looking at this, I connect this to Haruki Murakami's book, The Wind-Up Bird Chronicles, where the guy spends some time in the bottom of a well.
Oh, every book of his, the guy spending time in the bottom of the well.
So he's
I'm
looking
a huge
up.
Fan.
Right.
The collected works are right behind you.
There you go.
Yeah.
So then you look up, and then so it could be.
It's probably inspired by his work, actually,
some of it
in a way.
It's all,
he is my favorite author.
Nice.
By far. So
look at that.
Yeah.
So, okay, let's take a few steps back. So the person who brought this group together, why this group, and choosing depression, did she know, it was the person who brought the group together, did she know that everybody had this as a theme, or was it just going to come out anyways because we're human and it's COVID?
Probably the latter, I would say. She knew most of these people just professionally, I think. I'm very close friends with her, but I think she was having a hard time.
For sure.
And it wasn't selfish, that's too strong of a word, but I think she needed it in her life at the time, and she knew the rest of us needed it too.
Okay.
And so, yeah, I think it was, her attempt to take care of herself in a way, and her attempt to help others.
By creating a community. Yeah. Obviously. So, again, going back to the theme of the podcast, it's like this idea of the everyday is happening, and then somebody makes a decision. Let's bring these people together. Let's see what we can do together. How do we make the most of this moment? So, can you name one thing that didn't have to do with your work that really kind of changed or inspired, or from somebody else's work, somebody else's story, that really kind of gave you a breath of air out of the well? Or
I think just getting to know people in this way. We've all had our own experiences with what's been happening, and obviously those of us in Hong Kong have had a different experience than than a lot of other people in the world. So it was interesting to connect with, and again, like 2 of the people in this very small group lost their parents to COVID while we, after we convened. So
around this theme.
Yeah. And I've actually been part of a couple of kind of COVID, in the midst of COVID created artistic groups like this, collectives. And I've actually, I was saying I hadn't gone to art school, but since COVID started, I've been doing a 3-year online program with one of the top art schools in the U.S. And I've been taking also classes with the Art Students League of New York, which is this really esteemed organization. And, I never would have been able to do either of those things if it hadn't been for COVID. And so I've met also, and I did a residency this summer with the School of Visual Arts in New York. All of this came to me through COVID. I mean, none of those opportunities, I think, either the opportunities wouldn't have been there or I wouldn't have had the structure or the time in my life to
motivation.
I was going to Nepal a lot before COVID. We'd go back to the States in the summer.
Sure.
We had this, Hong Kong was home, but it was more like home base.
Right.
Not a place we were kind of really deeply rooted in. And that I would say is the case now.
Yeah. No choice.
Whether we want to be or not, but we're happy to be really happy to be. And so the group, and there was a woman in Norway there who hand makes paper, and she lives in one of the fjord areas, and so she goes in the mountains behind her house and collects natural fibers and makes paper and
collection of people to kind of meet and exchange. Nice.
A guy who's described kind of as a homesteader who lives in Oregon, and he hand carves spoons. That's his artistic practice. Awesome. Beautiful. And interestingly, I think because of this group, he had a friend he lost to COVID.
Oh, wow.
And that person's, I think, partner asked him if he would make a coffin. And so he actually has been hand making from wood, and he makes these slats that he kind of weaves together.
Amazing. Wow.
So that it's not a coffin in the kind of traditional sense of it's not this hermetically sealed box that's lined in velvet, and it's actually got open spaces in it. So it's breathing and put into the earth, and so it really and I think probably that for him came out of this group, and
wow.
So and we all it was a really interesting community of people.
I love that I am your neighbor. We connect through mutual contacts. It's Friday morning. Come over, have water, coffee, have a conversation. And I love that walking up here. I had no idea, expectations of what will we talk about. I get to meet somebody new.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, look at what we've covered, like what we've discovered. It's amazing. I'll use that as a segue to the next photo. Okay. So is life really a gift? Really? Can you make every second count? That's the whole point of the podcast. So if you like what you've seen and you're inspired, because that really is my mission, then please give it a like, subscribe, and share.
Shooting it raw?
Yes, shooting it raw.